Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but we want to give a shout out to our partners. We Coach, the Florida Coaches Coalition, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. You heard me say many times, these are four great organizations. You should make them part of your network. So now don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes as we give our sponsors their shout out. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Huddle for their support. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to coach our kids at the highest level. At Huddle, we believe in sports, and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus. Go to homecampus.com and find out all the things that they can do for you and your program. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association information management platform. As a high school AD, I used Home Campus every single day, and it was just fantastic. To find out more, like I said, go to homecampus.com. We also want to thank Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. If you're looking for a fundraiser, stop right here. SnapRaise is hands down the best you can find. But there's Snap Store, Snap Connect, Snap Manage, and a whole lot more. You can find it all at snapraise.com. We want to thank Gipper. Go to gipper.com. See how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channel. We'll celebrate your athletes, promote your teams, and get your brand out there. Go to gipper.com to find out more. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Hometown Ticketing is digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, more customization. Go to hometownticketing.com and find out more. That's hometownticketing.com. We also want to thank District 1. Go to District 1, that's WON, and you're going to feel like you've won when you check out their custom uniforms, their on-time delivery, and their one-at-a-time replacement program. You'll never have to buy a complete set when you're only looking for one or two replacement sets. That's district1.com. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their great products. And when you're done, go to ask them about the discount that they provide podcast listeners. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD. Sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to display your school record boards, your school's Hall of Fame, or just tell more compelling stories. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. We also want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that allows you to take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. ADs already hear back from the complainers, the 2% that want to gripe about everything. Athletic Surveys connects you with the 2%, but they also connect you with the 98% that love and support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool. To get started, go to athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Welcome back, everyone, to another Educational AD podcast. We've got a really cool guest today. Her name is Helen Williams. She's a longtime college basketball coach. Now she's an analyst for ESPN and some of the big conference networks. She's also quite a leader herself. She founded a couple of entrepreneurial efforts. One, I really want to hear about a coach for the coaches. We always say that the athletic director coaches the coaches. So Helen Williams, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, you and I were talking before we came on. I came across your profile on LinkedIn, where we get a lot of our guests. and just thought that you'd be a great guest for our listeners. So appreciate you joining us. Let's go and jump right in. We always do like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you're born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your high school years. And I know you're a big time college basketball player, maybe stop after your Wake Forest days, and then we'll take a break and then come back and hear more about your career. So what's the Helen Williams origin story?
Yeah, well, born in Washington, D.C., raised in what I call God's country, North Carolina. Um, and, had brothers, the only girl in the family. So naturally, back in the day, you would just come home from school, change your clothes after you did your homework and go out and play whatever sport, there was in season, and then just make sure you are home before the street lights come on. So, played a lot of sports with my brothers and their friends, and just gravitated towards basketball, and really loved it. At the time when I was a player in high school, they didn't have the AAU circuit and people recruiting players in the 8th grade to play on their team and traveling all over the country. So I was a very raw player, just very athletic. So I was not recruited. When I think back now, after all the years that I was coaching, I probably would have been a really good Division III player with my skill set, because I had really good grades. But then I went to camp at Wake Forest as a junior, and just fell in love with the place. And so, long story short, started to develop a relationship there, and then I just ended up walking on. Rarely played. I could probably remember every basket that I've ever scored, which tells you how much I did not play. But the experience was outstanding, being a part of that family, playing college basketball, all the life lessons that you learn, and even today, still really tight with my teammates, and just had a tremendous experience at Wake Forest. Great academic school, obviously. So if you look at my career, you'll see that a lot of schools that I was a coach at are, high academic institutions, because that was really important to me. Because I've never thought that, being smart and being a really good athlete, they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both at the same time. So yeah, just had a great experience at Wake Forest. And whenever I coached, I tried to get my players to love their institution as much as, as much as I love Wake Forest. This is one of the rare days where I don't have Wake Forest gear on. So.
We talked to a lot of people who have that similar story. I was certainly that way. I was okay high school athlete, and I played small college football and ran tracks. Was not a superstar by any means, but I think a lot of us end up as coaches and end up in administration, and certainly a superstar. There's been examples of great superstars who were also great coaches, but you talked about lessons. Can you think back to some of those lessons that maybe at the time you didn't know they were lessons, but now looking back from your perspective as a coach and as a leader, that, hey, that moment when I was a senior in high school, or I was a sophomore in college, that was a lesson. Anything stick out for you?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. So one of the things that, when I went to college, I had lost both my parents by the time I was 15. So I was sort of on my own. And one of the things that I learned about, being part of the team is how much of a family atmosphere it's important to have if you're going to be successful, to make sure that everyone feels valued. Like, I literally, Jake, was the last person on the bench. Like, there was no way I was going to go in the game. And from a coaching standpoint, that was where I should have been. However, I never felt any less than any of the other, my coaches. I had two coaches, Wanda Briley and Joe Sanchez. They never made me feel any less, or that I didn't have value to the program. And so I always try, whatever entity I'm a part of, to make sure that everyone feels valued, and that they feel that what they bring to the table, what they contribute, is really important to the overall mission of the organization. The other piece was resilience and maturity, because there are a lot of players who, if you're not going to play, they won't accept their role. And I just somehow I knew I shouldn't have been playing, but I also knew that I had a valuable skill in terms of making sure that I, really practiced hard and pushed the players that I knew were going to play really hard. And so that resilience and that stick to itiveness, I still, have today. And that was a part of it because I understood that there wasn't going to be instant gratification. I understood that what I was doing during that time period at some point would pay off in some manner.
Yeah, you talked about finding your role, and as coaches, we all have to work with that, whether it's basketball or football or whatever. Is making kids buy in and feel like they're part of a team, as opposed to, I'll get on my soapbox now. That all too common practice we see now of, well, what's in it for me, or what about my touches, or how many reps am I going to get? Great stuff. All right, we try to avoid ambush journalism here, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you familiar at all with the name Alan Williams and his book? I'm going to hold it up here. Teammates Matter. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not, but I will add it to my list on Amazon that is really long right now for books that I need to read.
Well, I'm going to give you a very quick background. I came across this, well, many years ago. I was still an athletic director. Alan Williams was a walk-on basketball player at Wake Forest, and
No way. I'm
and
definitely going to get the book now.
okay, yeah, and I think it was in. I know I'm going to mess this up. Like the early 2000s, maybe, or, um, but he was there for 4 years, and was a walk on. Hardly ever got into the games. He joked one night, or he joked in the book, I'll never forget the night I went 10 for 10 against North Carolina, but it was all during warmups. And just a great book. We actually we gave it to all of our coaches. We gave it to our kids, boys and girls in our basketball program. We flew Alan Williams down to our school in Miami, had him speak to our parents, speak to our student body. It really was an impactful book. And I mentioned it, again, the Wake Forest, the walk-on experience. So that's my book recommendation for our listeners, and for you.
Yeah, I'm going to order
Teammates
that today.
Matter, Alan Williams. Okay.
Very
All right,
cool.
let's get back to our guest. Our guest is Helen Williams, longtime college basketball coach. We're going to hear about that in a second. Also, a very successful entrepreneur. And oh, by the way, she's an analyst for a little organization called ESPN. We're going to take our first break, but we're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Huddle for their support of the podcast. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. When I was a football coach, I used Huddle every single day, and it was just great. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to coach our kids at the highest level. Go to huddle.com. See why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Start creating world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. Celebrate your athletes, promote your teams, promote your school. Gipper's used by over 3,000 athletic programs, high schools, and colleges nationwide. And it's so easy, even I can do it. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com for more information. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Helen Williams, longtime college basketball coach, now an analyst for ESPN. Helen, you and I were talking. You had a number of stops in your coaching career. Talk about that journey. Coming out of college. How did you end up with that first job? Where did the coaching bug come from? And then take us along with some of the stops that you were at.
Yeah, I like a lot of athletes, just I couldn't give up the game. And so a lot of what has happened to me with my career has just been the universe just presenting things to me. I've been very fortunate. But I actually, my first coaching job, I was a graduate assistant. I had graduated, was thinking about going into the military because my brothers, it was in my family. And you know, I was really serious about that. But then literally I was playing pickup ball one day with some of the alums, and an alum who was a head coach at a college near Wake Forest, Lenore Ryan College. It's a university now. Just we started talking, and she had a GA position open, and you know, I had done some soul searching and decided that I wanted to spend my entire life and never have a real job. So
Yes.
I wanted to always enjoy what I did and get paid for it. And so I saw this as an opportunity, one, to further my education. I knew if I was able to get a master's degree, I wasn't quite sure how I would use it, but I knew that it would be very important for me to have that in the future. So to have the ability to go and have my education paid for, which is totally different than my undergraduate education, I thought I'm never going to get this opportunity again. And I also saw, I knew that if I didn't, even though I wasn't that excited about going to grad school per se, if I didn't go then, it would be very difficult later on in life to do it, because you know, life happens. And so I was a GA there for 2 years, got my master's degree in counseling, you know, learned about the coaching profession, and you know, the pros, the cons. And then after that, my coach at Wake Forest asked if I wanted to come back. And so certainly an opportunity to go back to Wake Forest and hang out, I couldn't turn that down. I think I got paid, what, $10,000 for the year, which was nothing, but you know, I was a full-time assistant. And this is what I mean by family. My coach arranged for me to have a place to stay where I wouldn't have to pay a lot of rent. He fed me lunch every day, sometimes dinner. Arranged for me to have, you know, free meals in the cafeteria. So that was my first you know, Division I job, and I just fell in love with it. I loved learning about the game. I loved going to different schools and scouting, which they don't do in-person scouting anymore unless you're at a tournament now. But in my day, that's all you did. And I did 3-4 times a week. And unbeknownst to me, it would be very helpful with my television career, where I could pick up things just, you know, from seeing them the first time. So did that, was there for a couple of years, decided that I needed to make a change. I didn't want to be around there too long. And literally, once again, was playing pickup ball with someone. And Trudy Lacey, who was a head coach at South Florida, you know, we talked, and she hired me that for my job, my second Division I job down at the University of South Florida. And then I thought, you know, I do think I like this coaching gig thing. I know I want to be a head coach. How do I do that? And I looked at some of the coaches, and I realized that they didn't stay in one place for very long. They had different experiences. They were exposed to different philosophies, different, you know, different environments. So I literally got out the map and I said, where have I not lived? I closed my eyes and I literally did this, and it landed in the state of Michigan. So I said, okay, I don't know what that means, but I go to the Final Four, and literally sit next to someone who was saving a seat for someone else was Pat Charity, who was a head coach at Western Michigan. So we start to talk. I need a job. He's an assistant. I go to Western Michigan for you know, for 4 years, and then my coach at Wake Forest had now become the head coach at Navy, at the Naval Academy, and he'd been after me for a couple of years to work there. And I just sort of, I was like, no, I like it here. I don't want to move. But he stuck with it, and he said, hey, listen, I created this job for you. This is X amount of money, and you need to come work with me. So I ended up going to the Naval Academy, which I loved. Obviously, academics was important. These were some phenomenal kids who are to this day changing the world with their service in the military. Really enjoyed it. Was, you know, figuring out, hey, I think it's time to be a head coach now. So I had applied for a lot of jobs, didn't get anything. And and literally had decided, okay, this is going to be my last year in coaching. This isn't working. Maybe this isn't in the cards. Let me go, let me have this one last year where I'm going to do the very best that I can for coach. And then we'll, see what happens after that. I go down to a tournament in Tennessee, and I am literally outside thawing out because the gyms all have air conditioning. And I run into this gentleman, Richard Barron. I had seen him inside the gym, and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for an assistant." And my mind was just like, "Hey, okay, give me your card." And I started giving his card to other people. So I come outside and he goes, "You wouldn't be interested in my job, would you?" And this was, I don't know, 7 in the morning or something like that. I go, "I don't know." He's at Princeton. I was like, I don't know. He goes, "Listen, let me take you to dinner." This is how convincing Richard is. So I went from, "Are you interested?" at 11 o'clock in the morning, not 7, at 11 o'clock in the morning to when can you start at 7 o'clock that night. I mean, that's how quick it was. And ended up at Princeton, loved it. Still loved the Ivy League. And then after that, just was one day in the office at Princeton getting ready for a playoff game because in the Ivy League at the time, they didn't have a tournament.
Right.
So I was in my office watching film and listening to a game. I get a call. This is late, like 7 or 8 o'clock. And I answer the phone. And this gentleman says, "May I speak to Helen Williams?" I said, "This is she." He goes, "My name is Sean Frazier. I'm the athletic director at Merrimack College, and I'm calling to make you my next head coach." And I was like, "Who is this? Like some sort of prank or something?" But it really was Sean Frazier. And so, long story short, ended up there, being a head coach, and just loved it, and was there for 5 years.
You have coached as assistant or as a head coach, Division III, Division I, service academies, Ivy League. Okay. You've probably got a pretty good lens on what it takes to be a successful basketball coach or just a successful coach. So again, I'm going to put you on the spot. Second time I've ambushed you here. What are some commonalities? And we're going to do best practices and we're going to do the toolbox, but what are some things that stick out for you from your experience that maybe just give me one or two things just indispensable to have a successful program? And again, wins and losses are certainly part of that, but
Right.
success in all the other ways that we as coaches count success. Anything that you can share with our listeners now?
Well, I think it's important to understand, especially if you're a head coach, like you don't have to have all the answers. You need to hire good people and listen to them. I mean, I think that's really important. I was never a micromanager because I felt like if I had to micromanage you, then why did I hire you in the first place? And then when I was a head coach, Merrimack College is Division I now, but it was Division II at the time. I only got one assistant. And so I had to hire someone who was independent, who could come to the table with solutions and not just problems. And so my mantra always was hire good people, listen to them, and just sort of make sure that the what you want, why you want, and when you want it. You answer those 3 questions. You give them those 3 answers, and then you let them go and do things the way that they do things. Your way is not always the best way. And so my only parameters were whatever you do with what I ask you, it needs to be moral, it needs to be legal, and it needs to be ethical. Just follow those 3 things. And then, with that as your foundation, come to me with some different stuff. I don't have all the answers. I don't have to have all the answers. It's too fatiguing to try to have all the answers. And so I just really think it's important to, people always say surround yourself with good people. It sounds kind of hokey, but it's true. You got to hire good people, but you also have to let them do their thing.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on that. Surround yourself with people, as they say, smarter than you, not in everything, but in a lot of things. So you don't have to be smart in everything. Great stuff. Helen, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast too, because one of the things we try to do in addition to sharing best practices is create connections. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out and touch base with you, find out more about all your coaching secrets, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Well, for every demographic, if they want to email me, it's hmwsc@outlook.com. If you're old school and you actually want to talk on the phone, it's 609-548-0718. And if you're on Twitter, if you want to DM me, it's a coach for the coach. The 4 is an actual number, a coach for the coach.
Coach, I just started following you on Twitter, so you'll see my logo there. Helen Williams, we're going to take a quick break, but we're coming back with some more. So listeners, please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Home Campus, which is the exclusive high school and state association information management platform of the podcast. As an athletic director, I used Home Campus every single day, and it was just great. And the Home Campus staff was great to work with too. If you want to find out more about what Home Campus can do for you and your school, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We also want to say thank you to Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com. That's snapraise.com. Check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. If you're looking for a fundraising platform, stop right here. SnapRaise is hands down the best out there. But there's a lot more. There's Snap Connect, Snap Store, Snap Manage, and a whole lot more. You can find them all at snapraise.com. That's snapraise.com. Check them out today. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Helen, we've shared with our listeners a couple times that you're an analyst for ESPN. You also do work for some of the big conferences and their networks. Talk about how you transitioned from coaching to, let's say, on the other side of the camera, and how that compares with the coaching experience.
Yeah, I go back to what I said earlier. I never want to have a real job. I want to always enjoy what I do. And my life has to have athletics in it. And so this was a way to stay in the game. One of the things that always irritated me when they first started doing women's games on television way back when, was I didn't feel like they got the kind of broadcast that they deserved. I didn't feel like people put time in to watch the teams, talk to the players, talk to the coaches. I just felt like they just sort of plopped down there and then just did the game. And so it's always been very important to me from that aspect, to really put the time in, because the players put the time in. The coaches put the time in, and you should as well, as an analyst, to give them the broadcast that they deserve. So it wasn't unlike, in terms of preparation, unlike preparing to coach a game myself, which was part of what I enjoy, is that, I get to watch a lot of film. I get to talk to coaches, especially young coaches, and, give them some wisdom, if you will, if they ask. But also, that's what they deserve. So I watch a lot of film. I talk to coaches all the time, and I talk to the players, and I have always been a coach. And so I try, when I'm on the air, if you notice my style, it's sort of teaching. Like, I always want to let people know what's going on. You don't want to always be too technical, because you have just the everyday fan. But, for those that really want to know, if something's going on, if there's a trend for something, like, I want to explain it so that they understand. So to me, it's just a way to stay around the game. It's fun. I enjoy it. I get to see all the up and coming coaches, the young ones that are going to be head coaches in the future. I enjoy watching them. I enjoy sometimes reminiscing some of the old coaches about back in the day. And so the transition for me, the most difficult part was just to get an opportunity. It's a business that's very subjective, and it is all about who knows you and knows about you. And so from that standpoint, it took a really long time just to even get to ESPN. But again, that stick-to-itiveness as an athlete never leaves you. And so I just really enjoy. I get to prepare for a game. I go and talk about the game. They pay me to talk about the game, and then I get to go home. I don't have to, message a recruit on Twitter. I don't even know if they talk on the phone anymore now. If I go to a summer tournament, I go because I want to know who the best players in the country are, not because I need to call them later or recruit them, but I want to know who's, which kids are the best kids in the country, so that when it's sort of preparation for my work during the season.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You probably saw me chuckling when you talk about having a job where you don't have to go to work. That's how I felt my entire career. You've been in this game for a long time. It was a player, as a coach, now as a analyst and consultant. We've seen the last couple of years the WNBA really take off. Looks like it's really gaining a foothold, getting some traction with fans on a mainstream basis, which is great. I remember taking my daughter to a WNBA game here in Miami 20 years ago. We've seen some positive changes finally in the NCAA. The Final Four and the debacle they had a couple of years ago with the weight room and everything else. What are some positive changes that you have seen over the years from your perspective? And again, we're nowhere near where we need to be. We're getting better, but we're not where we need to be. What are some positive changes, and what are some changes that you think we still need to make?
Well, I think the biggest change for women's athletics is just the WNBA is just the how should I say this? People need to know that it exists, right? The coverage, like, it doesn't get the coverage, and so you have these people that go, you guys are never on TV. Well, they don't put them on TV, right? So it's sort of a catch-22. The more people see, the WNBA, the more they see what a great product it is, what tremendous athletes they are with their athleticism, with their basketball intellect, tremendous coaches, great analysts. And so it's a matter of more exposure, just like anything else. And everyone likes to compare WNBA to the NBA. WNBA is only 26, 27 years old. And if you go back and you look at the NBA at the same stage, there were some of the same issues with perception and exposure and money and all those types of things. So it is a matter of people. I will say this. There are people that want to invest in women's athletics in general. They go, okay, well, you guys have to prove to us you can make money before we give you money. Where if you look at men's athletics, they go, okay, here's some money. Now prove that you can make money. And so it's obviously going to take, WNBA longer. I know that they've made a lot of changes for the players, and probably not as fast as the players would like, obviously. But I think exposure is one of the key things. And not everybody's going to like the WNBA. Not everybody likes the NBA. Not everybody likes Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer. But there are a lot of people out there, more than is given credit, that are big fans of women's basketball, and they need exposure. I was in Vegas at the Summer League a couple of weeks ago, and it's really hard to find a Las Vegas Aces jersey. But you go anywhere in the hotel, there's the Las Vegas, the hockey team that just won, which is cool, right? The Raiders. I'm a big football fan, but you don't see any Las Vegas Aces gear. So if a kid's walking through the store, he or she has no idea that the Aces exist. And so I think that's a big part of it too. So there have been some changes, but I think there needs to be more. And unfortunately, it doesn't come as fast as we would like for it to come.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. We had a guest on a while back, and she pointed out exactly what you said, that if you look at the NBA in their 25th, 26th, even further on years, there was no TV contract, there was no big money, and so the WNBA is far ahead from that metric. But you're absolutely right. It's a great product. The women's college basketball game, how exciting were those Final Four games this year? And I can tell you, I don't watch the NBA at all. until the playoffs. Okay. But I have watched a number of WNBA games this summer. So, there's something for you. For our listeners, our guest is Helen Williams, longtime college basketball coach, ESPN analyst, and the founder of a couple different entrepreneurial efforts, one called A Coach for the Coaches. We're going to hear about that when we come back. So stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown offers digital ticketing with more support, more security, more customization. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their team is going to show you how to sell your tickets online, not just for athletic events, but things like school plays, concerts, school dances, even graduation. And every step of the way, you'll have a dedicated client success manager that's providing you hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com and check it out. It's simple and easy online ticketing. That's hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thank you to District 1. Go to District 1, that's WON, and you're going to feel like you've won when you check out their great custom uniforms, their on-time delivery, and their one-at-a-time replacement program. You're never going to have to buy a complete set of uniforms again when you just need one or two replacements. Go to district1.com, click on the Team Gear button, and you'll get a free quote. That's district1.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Helen, we've mentioned earlier that in addition to now, working with ESPN as an analyst, you also have your own organization called A Coach for the Coach. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about and, share with our listeners why they might reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah. Well, full disclosure, the head coaching job that I talked about, I was there for 5 years, and then I got fired. I had, in retrospect, I had 3 athletic directors and 4 presidents within a 5-year period. So no one is going to be successful in that type of environment. It wasn't very supportive. But the point that I make is that probably I should have not taken that job. It's beneficial, obviously, for my clients because there's a lot of what not to do that I help them with. But I started to really look at, when someone gets fired, like I didn't blame anybody. I looked at what was my part in the process? Like, what could I have done better? And I started to think about the things that I didn't know or didn't learn. Like, you don't know what you don't know till you become a head coach. Or athletic director. You sit there as an assistant and you go, well, I don't know whether she's doing that. I don't know why he's doing that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And can't be that hard. But then you literally move that 1 inch over, and it's an entirely different world, right? So what I realized was that I should have had someone coaching me and helping me understand what skills I had, what skills I needed to enhance, what skills I needed to acquire. And these are skills that had absolutely nothing to do with X's and O's. If you're a coach, we naturally are going to go to camps and clinics, right? And the 2 things that you think about as a coach, especially when you're young, is I need to be really good at X's and O's, and I need to be really good at recruiting. While those are 2 very important aspects of a successful program, it doesn't matter if you're not proficient in leadership, management, and communication. Those are 3 areas that I think you should be ever curious about, no matter what profession you're in, but certainly in coaching, because when you are in charge of an organization, you have to get everyone to buy into your vision. But if you're unable to communicate that vision appropriately, or you haven't even thought about what that vision is, I mean, hopefully you have, and that's how you got the job in the first place. You've communicated that to your athletic director, but those are things that are ongoing every day. And so if you're not paying attention in those 3 areas, then there's a problem. So I looked and I was like, I should have had an executive coach. I should have had someone who's been in the business for years, who can tell me what I don't know and can give me, some tips and tell me how I can do things better, or, hey, watch out, this is coming. You need to be ready for that. You need to do this, you need to do that. So that was part of it. And I go back to, I had a tremendous career in coaching at literally some of the best institutions in the world. But imagine if I had been more planful, more mindful, and most importantly, more strategic. Perhaps I still would have gotten a head coaching job, but it would have been elsewhere and it would have been a better fit. To me, that's really, really important, is making sure that you get the right fit, because it's a job that there are no set hours. You have to be passionate about it. And it can't be something where you get up in the morning and you feel like you're going to work. They say this all the time, understand your why and all that. That's important too. But I don't think people take enough of an academic approach to coaching. It's one of the only professions I know where they give you a whistle and say, welcome to the profession. There is no certification process per se. If you look at the medical field, insurance field, you have to get certified every couple of years to a pharmaceutical field to make sure that you are, up to date on whatever's going on. They don't do that in coaching. And so I think coaches don't do enough of self-reflection and self-examination to say, okay, I don't understand this, so let me go get help with X, Y, and Z. Let me take some time and educate myself in this particular area that I need to get better. And we feel like we don't have time because there are all these ancillary duties that you have to do now in coaching. It's not, if it were just practice and games, I probably, to be honest with you, Jake, would probably still be in the business. But there are all these ancillary duties that you have, and more so here over the last couple of years that have been added to your plate. But you as a coach, you tell your players, hey, I'm going to evaluate your weaknesses and your challenges, and I'm going to give you this workout, and I expect you to do this workout over the summer, and I expect you to come back a better player. But we don't do that with ourselves. Why are we not looking at our strengths and our challenges and figuring out a way to educate ourselves with continuing education so that we come back better after the summer, so that our student athletes have a better quality of experience? We don't do that. It's not part of our nature. It's when you get into coaching, you inevitably start coaching the way that you were coached initially. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. And what I think people don't understand is that this is a very sacred profession. You literally can impact the entire world from your interaction with just one kid. Think about the person who coached the president of the United States. Think about the person who, coached the CEO of one of these Fortune 500 companies. If you think about it, just that one interaction, you can impact the entire globe. And that's how I don't think coaches look at that. I still whip my head around if I hear the term coach, because I think somebody's talking to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone remembers a coach in their entire lifetime. If they ever played athletics. And when I say coach, I can use that loosely. It could be a music teacher or whatever. But to me, everybody who was a leader is a coach. Everybody remembers one coach that they had. That could be a good reason. That could be a bad reason. And so the question is, which side do you want to be on? Right. I still today, my two coaches in college, I still can't call them by their first names. Right. It doesn't
work. No.
It doesn't work for me, because I have that much respect for them and how much they helped me grow and the opportunities that they gave me. And so, I'm indebted to them for that. But how do you want to be remembered? And so I think that that's important. And so when I work with coaches, first of all, I want to work to make sure that you understand what this means. When I went back to when I said I was going to get out of coaching, it was because I was a little bit frustrated because I kept applying for jobs and I wasn't getting any traction. But I realized I wasn't doing the right things. I wasn't being strategic. I wasn't being mindful. I wasn't being planful. I wasn't building the right relationships. And so I didn't understand the process, about how coaches get jobs. It's a very small world, and you have to cultivate relationships that are going to be beneficial to you later on.
Yeah. And you brought up a great point initially. We don't know what we don't know. I became a head football coach way, way too early, and I was excited, but I didn't know what I didn't know. Fortunately, I had some good assistant coaches, some veterans that, could, pat me on the back or kick me in the butt, whatever I needed at that point. And you mentioned the idea of fit. That's another tool that I wish I would have had earlier in my career. I coached and taught and was an AD for 41 years, and I loved probably 40 of them. I liked the other one. But for my final job, where I was an athletic director at a very prestigious academic and athletic school here in Florida, I intentionally sat down with, it was the head of school, like the principal or the superintendent. I sat down with the head of school and, just pointedly asked him, who do I answer to? What is the metric? What are you after here? And I just don't think enough coaches or ADs do that. Certainly at the college level, if you're not winning by a certain time, you could be doing the greatest coaching job in America, but at college, you got to have those wins, and to a degree in high school too. But you need to know that going in. And, that point is so good. I want to take a break here, but when we come back, let's go into some of the things that you provide as a coach for the coaches, and really go into maybe a deeper dive. So we're going to take our second to last break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. We use it for home games, of course, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their indoor score tables and their video displays today. Speaking of displays, we also want to say thanks to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Now, they're a little bit different, okay? Their interactive touchscreen video consoles are a great way to display your school record boards for all your sports, for all the events, and your school's Hall of Fame. They're also a great way for you to tell more compelling stories and celebrate your school's diverse history, your proudest moments, and your top role models. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their great products. Mention the podcast. They'll give you a nice discount. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. Our guest is Helen Williams. Helen, you were sharing your platform, a coach for the coaches. I think athletic directors really want to provide professional development and some of the things that you were talking about, but they get so bogged down in scheduling and transportation and all the minutia, and coaches too. So talk about some of the services that your organization can provide for a coach or even an athletic director.
Yeah, I think to your point, we do always feel like we don't have time. But I go back to, if you're in coaching for the right reasons, who are your constituents? And those are your athletes. And so they're only going to have a great quality, a positive quality of experience, if you do things the right way. And by that, I mean those three areas: leadership, management, and communication. But before you even get to those, you've got to have the right fit. So I have a lot of young coaches that say, oh, hey, I want to be a Division I head coach. Okay, well, what does that mean? And have you thought about what a good fit for you is? Do you like cold weather? Do you want to be at an academic institution? Do you want to be at a large school, small school? One of the advantages that I have is I've worked at public, private, scholarship, non-scholarship, military, Ivy League, Division I, II, and III. And so I understand the nuances of each level, and they all have different expectations. So what's going to make you happy? Because if you're not happy, then the quality of experience for your students is not going to be good. And so we start off by helping, the coaches develop a strategic roadmap. I'm at point A. My goal here is point Z. And I do just what I did with my players. We work backwards. So if you want to be a Division I head football coach, what does that mean? Well, what comes right before the actual head coaching job? Well, probably, a coordinator position. Well, what comes before that? I don't know, position, you're a position coach or whatever, you work your way backwards so you see what steps you have to take, and then you connect the dots. That's what I do. I help them connect the dots between point A and point Z. But you have to be willing to be uncomfortable in that situation. You have to be willing to really spend some time thinking about what works for you. Coaches do not spend enough time. We spend so much time taking care of everyone else. We neglect ourselves. And there's this old saying that my mother used to have: if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So if you're not well-rounded, happy, and feeling good about what you're doing, or even know what you want to do, again, it goes back to that kid's not going to have a great experience. So you really have to, we help develop a roadmap so that when you make decisions along the way, if you said you're going to turn right, but an opportunity comes that says, you turn left, and you change your mind, because it's the roadmap is an iterative process. And if you change your mind, there's a valid strategic reason for you turning left instead of turning right. And so I don't think coaches really sit down for that. I think every coach has been, if you look at your schedule, you take all the hours in the week, there's 168 hours in the week. And if you wrote down every single thing that you did, there's inevitably about 3 or 4 hours during the week that you're wasting that you could be using to further your career in a way that's going to be beneficial for you. That could be developing relationships, that could be taking a class, that could be talking to some coaches, that could be, watching film or whatever. That could be working on your resume, your cover letter, your portfolio, all these things that I help you with. But we don't spend that time doing that. We think, oh, I don't have time. But if you literally wrote down goofing off, exercising, family, commute, coaching work, there's always at least, I say 3 or 4, but I'm sure there's 2 hours a week that you are not using to further your career in a strategic manner. And that's what I meant earlier when I said we don't take enough of an academic approach to our career. I'm of the mind, I'm trying to change the perception, the paradigm, excuse me, of coaches working really hard and waiting for people to find them. Working really hard is very important. Grinding is very important. But I'm of the mind that you can engineer the opportunity that you want by doing some basic things, by spending those 2 hours a week and doing things that you need to do to further your career.
Yeah, it's popular now to say, maybe it's been popular for a while, work smarter, not harder. And it sounds like that's kind of the line that you're taking. Can you give an example again to that cynical coach that's listening of a client that you've worked with? Certainly we don't want names or schools, but where you were able to help them kind of rethink this and it paid off with increased production. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I worked with an older gentleman who had always done things a certain way. And it wasn't necessarily unsuccessful, but he was getting to the point where he just wasn't happy. And so we literally sat down and we went over where he had, been these different places. And I asked him questions like, well, why did you pick this place? And he goes, it was a job. And I go, I get it was a job, but was there a reason that you were drawn to this? Well, it was a job, it was more money, right? And that's one of the mistakes I made. I would take jobs because they were higher level and they were more money, not necessarily because it was a good fit. I thought that's how you did it, in terms of getting opportunities. And so, as old as he was, he had never really thought about why he was taking jobs, and why he sort of understood why he was coaching. It was kind of like, well, my coach was good to me, so I figured that's that's something that I can do. I love I love the sport, and I want to stay in the sport. Well, it's okay to want to stay in the sport, but you are impacting lives. And so I helped him understand that he was literally impacting lives, and that it couldn't be just something that you want to love to do it, but he needed to be more intentional about his interaction with his athletes. Because kids today, and here's the other thing, you have to change with the times, whether you like it or not. Things change, and there are ways to integrate the foundational things that you have based your life on with new changes. You don't have to not be who you are in order to, but you do have to evolve with the way, it changes. And so we literally sat down and I asked him why. We went over everything that he did. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Well, is there a way you could, do this different, but still feel like you're true to yourself? And it sounds hokey, but sitting down and really having that discussion with him helped him realize that, um, I can still have my way of doing things, but I can still have the results that I would like, but they don't necessarily have to be the way that I've always done them because I'm dealing with a different generation of kids. And he realized he still loves coaching, which was very key, but just some small changes to get his players to buy in. It doesn't have to be, I think coaches get caught up, especially older coaches get caught up in, well, back in my day. And we all, I mean, you get to the point where everybody has it back in the day, but back in your day, things were different. It's really hard for kids to grow up now. Really, really hard with all the mixed messages they're getting from media, social media, and everything. And the foundational things of working hard, not looking for instant gratification. You're telling people to respect these kids, to respect other people, but yet you see people getting rich doing the complete opposite, and the kids going, "I thought you said if I respected authority and worked hard, I see people not making progress doing what you say is the right thing." So recognizing that it's really, really hard for kids to grow up today, and that you need to evolve if you plan to be in their lives and interact and help them get to where they want to be through sport.
Yeah, that point of when I was a kid or back in my day, it's not really. Sometimes it is, but it's not a right, wrong, good or bad. It's different. It's different now than it was, when I was in high school or college, or when you were in high school and college. I think I'm a
Right.
little bit older than you. Um, this has just been really cool, Helen. I really appreciate you spending time with us today, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you are not an athletic director, but you've certainly dealt with a couple over your long career. We're going to take our final break. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So let's take our final break. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Helen Williams is going to put in her new athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for their support of the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire program. Athletic directors usually hear back from the complainers, the 2% that want to gripe about everything. Athletic Surveys will connect you with the 2%, but they'll also connect you with the 98% that love and support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking to that frustrated parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey for your program that'll allow you to take the pulse of the parents and the student athletes. That's athleticsurveys.com. Make sure you check them out today. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Helen Williams, a longtime college basketball coach, analyst for ESPN, and the founder of A Coach for the Coaches consulting program. Knows her way around the world of athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Helen, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Well, the first thing I would say is that you need to be ever curious and always learning, always continuing education, always getting better as a person, as an athletic director, because you are the leader of these coaches. You're their coach, basically. And just as you would expect them to evolve and get better and learn so that they can teach their athletes, I think you should be ever curious as well. The second thing is you really need to invest in your people. I know that athletic directors have a budget and their priorities, but everything comes down to making sure that these kids have a great experience. And so the better your people are, the better experience your student athletes will have. So invest in continuing education, especially if you're a college athletic director, especially for the assistant coaches, because no one ever pays attention to them. It's always, we're going to send our head coach here. We're going to get this for our head coach. And that's all important. But the assistants are the backbone of the program. And so they need to be developed as well. So always invest in your people with continuing education. I think that's really important. And then the third thing is, if you're an athletic director and you have expectations of your coaches, you need to match those expectations with the budget. If you're expecting, we live in a world where, there's some anomalies where people take over, and in the second year of their career at this particular institution, they win a national championship. So all of a sudden, everyone wants to win, a national championship. But you need to match the resources to your expectations of your coaches. You can't ask them to recruit the best players in the country if you don't give them a great recruiting budget. You can't ask them, to have people have kids come to the school and not have the facilities. You can't ask them to do things that you're not going to help them with in terms of resources. So I think that's really key. And resources are all relative, right? But make sure, if you're asking your coaches to do some things, that you provide them with the resources they need to achieve those things.
Well, I really love the the lifetime learner, and it just everything was great. Support your coaches. I think that we did a pretty good job of that, providing our assistant coaches, the entire staff, the opportunity to go to clinics and the resources. We would tell our coaches, don't be thankful for what you have, okay, but help us make the program better. How can we get better? Come with some solutions, come with some suggestions. And then as an AD or as a principal, you need to understand that if this school has more resources, that's going to impact your coach and your AD's ability to do things. Great stuff. Okay. Helen, thanks again for spending time with us one more time. If our listeners want to reach out, find out more about you or about a coach for the coaches, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can email me at hmwsc@outlook.com. They can call me at 609-548-0718. I'm on Twitter, a coach for the coach, or you can go to my website, hmwsportsconsulting.com.
Helen Williams, thanks again, and all the best moving forward. I'm definitely going to start looking for the analyst team as I peruse my women's basketball watching. So thanks again for sharing.
Well, appreciate you having me, Jake. Thank you.
For listeners, we do this just about every day, and we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Come back next time for another great interview, and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.